You're watching The Mom View, sponsored by the Herzog Foundation. It has been said that our Constitution has had profound influence all over the world, both in the past and currently, for its remarkable contribution to man's search for freedom under a system of laws. Even so, did you know that only 2 countries still allow the right to keep and bear arms? Today we're talking about this unique right and why it's so important to uphold and protect all of our rights. Welcome to the Mom View. I'm Kimberly Fletcher.
And I'm Debbie Carlitis.
And I'm Vanessa Fora.
We have some great topics to talk about today.
As always.
As always, as always. You know, the opening where we're talking about that there's only 2 countries on the planet, aside from ours, that allow the right to bear arms. I had no idea.
We had to fact check that. We were like, really?
I know. That I was like, what? But I mean, just the fact that we have that unalienable right here in America, something that we really need to protect. But there's a lot of attacks on the gun rights.
Yeah, and it goes to show all the freedoms that we have in America that we take for granted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm going to ask, are either of you card carrying, concealing, carrying?
So Missouri, if I remember right, is an open carry state, but I do have a concealed carry. I told my husband, about 5-6 years ago, I said, we're going to have to go to the gun range like multiple times a week because I need to be able to be so versed on how to care, protect, and use that gun that when I need to use it, I don't even have to think, because if I think, I'm afraid I couldn't use it, and then I'm harmed. Which brings up another point that I love, is you don't even think about this. Just the fact that you're carrying a gun and people see that you carry a gun deters crime against you.
Yeah, I mean, guns do deter criminals and people that are going to come after you, you know, and that's exactly what and I'm really excited to talk with Amy today because, yes, I have my conceal and carry. Yes, I every once in a while try to carry it, but I'm not comfortable with it. I'm not doing it enough. I'm not on the gun range enough. My husband's always like, you know, date night, we're going to go to the gun range, you know, and we never get there. I'm always like, maybe dinner instead, honey, you know, but so those are some of the things I just have to be more diligent about.
So date night, dinner, and gun range.
Exactly. Let's go to the gun range. What about you, Vanessa?
Yeah, I think, you know, especially with young women, how do we have that conversation in helping young women build confidence in being confident and comfortable carrying a gun, right? So that's something that we definitely need to have a conversation about.
Yeah, I think that moms in general just fear the idea of guns because they hear so many stories about, you know, children getting a hold of the gun or suicide rates and all of these things. But when we looked up the statistics, there are way more people who are protected by guns than are harmed by them when they own them, and we don't talk about those statistics. When there is a shooting, the first thing we want to do is say, oh my gosh, there shouldn't be guns. But the fact is, they're criminals. These are people who are already breaking the law. So having more laws is not going to stop people who already don't care about the law. And it's always us that are the ones that are being penalized when a law is passed.
I think too, it's the society and the culture has crumbled so much. I mean, it's a dangerous world right now, and you have to be able to protect yourself. And how do you do that? And some people may say, I'm okay with pepper spray. Some other people may say, you know, it's a gun, but we do have to figure out how to protect ourselves in this society, especially our children or home defense, whatever it is. We have to figure out how to have a safe place, our home, and when we're even out going grocery shopping.
Which is why our next guest is so perfect. So coming up, while out exercising, Amy Robbins found herself in need of more than her cell phone for defense. What she did to secure her safety and the safety for women and men alike after this break.
The Herzog Foundation exists to catalyze and accelerate the development of quality, Christ-centered K-12 education so that families and culture flourish. To do so, we've created comprehensive programs designed for Christian schools across the nation. One of those programs is found at readlion.com. The Lion carries news articles covering issues especially related to the education of children. These are timely, critical, must-read articles for families, educators, and leaders. Another program is the Herzog Foundation Institute, where we provide training for Christian educators led by national thought leaders in subjects such as marketing, donor development, and culture building. All training events are fully funded by the Herzog Foundation. And finally, with new Christian schools popping up all over the country, we've created a free online resource to help with the process. HF Schoolbox provides lessons and free mentorship to help launch groups navigate the startup process every step of the way. We're the Herzog Foundation. You can find out more at herzogfoundation.com.
There is power in being a mom because we truly care. Nobody's going to care more about your children than you. And that's what this group is about, is real women getting together to fight real battles for our country.
Moms for America is a national movement of moms reclaiming our culture for truth, family, freedom, and the Constitution.
And I will tell you, I'm a journalist, but I am a mama bear. And I am a mama bear till the last breath in my body. And that's the most important thing I've ever done with my life.
Never, never underestimate the mother who's protecting her child. She will outfight fear. She will outlast danger. And she will outlove the world. And you surely do not mess with Mama Bear.
You can't push anything on our kids. We will stand up for our kids no matter what the consequences may be.
Moms for America is one of the most important organizations in saving our republic.
There are eyes, there are ears, and they're the most fierce fighters for our kids that we will ever know.
Every mission has two parts, those who give and those who do. And when we come together, we are stronger together in fulfilling that mission. An investment in Moms for America is an investment in the future. And we literally hold the future of America in our hands.
Amy Robbins is the CEO and co-founder of Alexo Athletica. She has a passion for the Second Amendment and for firearm safety and proficiency. She wants to see women everywhere live in a confident, self-reliant lifestyle. That's kind of why we're really glad to have her on the couch today. So welcome to the Mom View, Amy.
Thank you all so much for having me and to get to come talk about this very important topic. I appreciate it.
It is a very important topic. Yeah. And I really want to start by how you got started, because you're a runner. Props to you on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But because
we all try.
Right. But because you were a runner, that's really what led you to start the company. So tell us what your experience was.
Yeah, this is what happened. I grew up in a family with firearms. So firearms were nothing new to me. It just was never anything that I actually started exercising on a daily basis. But because I went out and I ran the same route every single day. And I was out in the country, those back roads that are really quiet. So you feel really safe out there because no one's ever coming down the roads. Well, this day it was a little bit different. This day as I rounded the corner, I actually heard a big van, or I heard a big car behind me. And I looked back, and all of a sudden they got very close to me. They rolled down their windows. There was about 7 guys in this van, and they started doing that aggressive catcalling and the harassing. And it didn't escalate beyond that point, but I said, okay, this is making me really uncomfortable. Yeah. And they went to the end of the road and they circled back around. And when they circled back around, that was my aha moment of, what am I going to do if this were to escalate beyond the catcalling, beyond the harassing? Millions of women experience that when they go out and exercise. So I tell people, I just started praying. I really didn't know what else to do. I didn't have any form of self-defense tool on my body at that point. I didn't ever think that I needed it. And I said, God, if you just get me home, give me a second chance. I will get home and do something with my second chance, please. So I tell people my story ended there. For a lot of women, their story doesn't end there. I got to get home safe and I got to do something with my second chance. So I picked up the phone, I called my buddy who did concealed handgun license classes. I said, you got to get me signed up for this. I need to carry something. I went straight to the firearm. I got my license to carry, got my first firearm, and then I said, well, now what? Where am I supposed to put this on my body? How are you supposed to go run 10 miles when you're training for a marathon with something that bulky on your body in a comfortable way and also in a stylish way? So I started researching. There was nothing on the market that was, fashionable enough for me. I didn't want to sacrifice what I was currently wearing. And so I said, you know what? I'll just do this myself. So I had no background in manufacturing or design, but I figured it out, and God brought a lot of the right people in my life to make it happen.
That's fantastic.
What a great story. Yeah.
So tell us about the brand itself.
Yeah, so Alexo Athletica, the name that we came up with,
Yeah, what is this
Alexo,
name?
I know. So Alexo is actually a Greek word, and it means to defend and to help.
Yeah.
And we wanted to play on the Second Amendment. We tell people that we will never back down from supporting the Second Amendment. We know that the Second Amendment is really under attack right now in our country. And I wanted to give women an option, a clothing option that made it comfortable to carry, that made it safe to carry, and then most importantly, made it fashionable. Not everyone wants to go out and look like a tactical Jane. You know, some do, but most don't. And so I wanted to create an option that really kind of seamlessly fit into their lifestyle with premium fabrics, great cuts and fits, but then also gave them the ability, if they wanted to carry a firearm, to carry it close to their body.
Well, that's my question. So I have my conceal and carry, as I mentioned, but I don't know where to put it on my body. What's comfortable? How do you get to it? Everyone can see it or not see it. If you have it in your purse, is that really the best place for it? What about just in your, your glove box in your car? That's where I feel most safe with it because then it's not on me.
Yeah.
So really, it's kind of like this switch of carrying it and then being able to feel comfortable carrying it.
It was a journey for me, and I think it's a journey for a lot of women. So I didn't just start right out carrying it on my body, and I didn't start right out carrying with one in the chamber. All of this was progression. I did kind of the same thing. I actually started by putting it in my purse, and the more practice that I did, the more that I went out and actually trained with different scenarios, I started figuring out, wow, it's going to take me a lot longer to get into my purse, to dig around the black hole of my bag and find what I need.
Purse. That's that's me.
It is.
I can't find my phone or anything.
I can't either. And I really don't want to be digging around for a firearm because you really don't understand how much time you have to close the gap. By the time you recognize a threat to the time that person gets to you, it's seconds. I mean, it's milliseconds. So you don't have time to be digging around in your bag to get to your self-defense tool. So that's when I had the mindset shift to actually carry it on my body. But to get there, I had to do a lot of training. So I worked with everybody from the Delta Force. I've worked with Navy SEALs. I've worked with Gunsight America, which is in Arizona, which gave me really great defensive training because it's one thing to go stand at a gun range and shoot stagnant and have all the time in the world to hit your target. It's another thing when you're under pressure to actually make the shot and to make sure that, because you have to remember, every single bullet that leaves that firearm, you're responsible for it.
Right.
So you have to make sure that you're eliminating the threat and nothing else around you gets harmed. And so the only way to really feel confident with that is to go and put the time in to practice. So I understand why a lot of women are hesitant to actually start carrying it on their body, especially when they have young kids. But it's such an important right. And I truly believe that if we don't exercise our rights, we're going to lose our rights, ladies. If someone were to take away your ability to pray, you would probably stand up and fight for that not to be taken away because you're exercising that right. You're praying your religious freedom. Same thing with firearms. I think a lot of people don't stand up and fight when they talk about taking away our firearm rights because they're not exercising it. It doesn't mean anything to them if they say, well, you no longer can carry a gun. Well, they don't have a gun at their house. And so I encourage people to get a firearm, exercise that God-given right, first to, stop a tyrannical government, but also to protect yourself, but go learn about them. Get proficient, learn how to safely store them, learn how to put them in your house in a way that makes you feel confident that you could get to it if someone broke into your house, but also that keeps it safe from your children.
So you brought up a very good point about not losing our rights. If we don't exercise them, we lose them. So there are 340 million people in the United States, and only 2 million actively can carry guns for defense. So that surprised me. And there aren't really that many cities in the country, according to the population, that are restricting it. So we have the opportunity to use it. But I think the two main things that really scare moms particularly, and I think you could really address this, is having a firearm in your home is terrifying because what you said about every bullet that comes out you're responsible for. What if the grandkids get it? What if the children get it? And the second one is, could I actually use it?
Right. All really great questions. So one of the things that we started doing with my own children is that we just started familiarizing them with gun safety rules from a very young age. They know that I carry. Whenever we take it apart, I'm always taking the magazine out, I take one out of the chamber, and I tell my kids 4 things. Whenever you see a firearm, whether it's at our house or your friend's house, you stop, you don't touch, you run away, and you tell an adult. So we practice that on a regular basis. We're taking away some of the mystery with a firearm. I don't want the first time they see a firearm to be at a parent's house who didn't safely store it, who was reckless with their storage. So just in case that happens, I want my kids to know exactly what to do. I don't care if your friend says, hey, come and look at this cool thing. You run out of that room.
It's
and
largely
you tell an adult.
curiosity. So what you've just done is take out the curiosity.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of how I grew up. My dad, no, he didn't really safely store it. He had shotguns under the bed, but we were all girls. We didn't really want to mess with them anyways. I shot a shotgun when I was 10 and decided I wasn't going to do that again until I was 30. So I didn't want to have the firearms, but we wanted to familiarize them with it, and we really wanted to make sure that they knew the gun safety rules. The second part is storage. So knowing that you have a place that is easy to get to your firearm. So yes, we keep them in our bedroom, but they are locked up. It's a very easy safe to get to. We know that we can use it. But again, the only way to know that you're going to be comfortable using it in a situation is practicing. You got to know how to load that firearm. You've got to know, is the safety on or off? If this button is up or down, you need to.
Red is dead.
So the access. If that's one of the things that I've been concerned about. If you have this gun locked up for safety reasons, which of course you want, can you get to it? Can you access it in the speed of time that you need to? Right. So even you should even practice that, going and opening and unlocking.
Well, and even having your heart rate elevated, doing it in scenario training, guys, is the absolute best. They have different places, at least where I live, they're called shoot houses, where you can actually go in and train for these scenarios, where you can actually act like you're laying down in bed. You can practice the scenario. Most people have no idea what their heart rate's going to be doing during a moment like that. And are you going to be steady and calm and proficient with your firearm in that scenario? That's why I'm a big proponent for shotguns for home defense, actually. You have more spread, so you have more little tiny pellets that can hit something versus trying to be super accurate in the middle of the night with one bullet, like with a 9mm.
That's exactly what I'm terrified about, is because I do have it next to my bed. And if something happened and I heard somebody coming down the hallway, all I could think of is, could I possibly shoot my child that's behind them? So it's like you have to figure out these codes in your home. Like, of course you pray that never happened, but I have a friend who was attacked on her front porch, dragged into the home, and basically was taken advantage of and was severely hurt. She didn't have any kind of protection on her, and things like this are happening. And I think that's where we're at. It's a dangerous world.
I'll tell you this too, a lot of women, when they decide to get a firearm, it is from a reactive standpoint versus a proactive standpoint. And what I would really like women to get in the mindset of is, go and learn about a firearm before the bad thing happens. Know how to use them and be safe with them so that you don't find yourself maybe in a situation like myself that it could have turned into something a lot worse.
How do we do a better job in getting this information out to women who may be considering owning a gun and they know nothing about it? Just everyday women that are, don't want to wait for something bad to happen. But then they also are very busy. They're having busy lives. They're taking care of children, their families are working, and yet they have to come up with, it sounded to me that it's like a whole list of steps to take to be able to own a gun responsibly.
So there's a lot more resources now than there were when I was starting this journey. I can tell you that. It's very easy to go and find somebody. I love USCCA. They've got great instructors on their website that tell you, they've got classes all over the place. Going to a gun range. Finding a lot of gun ranges now are catering to more women. They know that more women are buying
Girls
firearms.
with Guns.
Yes, Girls with Guns is a fantastic organization. I love them. I know their CEO very well. And so finding a place that has classes that kind of cater to you. What I like about that model is that they actually give you multiple firearms to try, because ladies, let's be real, like finding the gun that works is kind of like finding the shoe that works. It's not one shoe for every occasion. Got to get your hands on as many options as you can. You got to see what's comfortable for you, and it's not just the firearm that your husband picks out for you. It's not just the pink gun that the man behind the counter says, hey, you need to go shrink it and pink it and this will work perfectly for you. You really don't know what you want until you go and get your hands on it. Once you figure that out, then you can start taking the next steps of making sure that you know how to be accurate, you know how to get proficient, and then find a safe that you can quickly access if you need it in your house. And those are like the best first steps to start taking, I would say, to get into it.
You know, I'd like to talk about just our safety in general because
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about you ladies, but when I am out, this is my bubble.
Right.
And you just think
We're
that
not paying attention. We're
you're right, you're good.
multitasking.
There's no situational awareness because we're like, this is our situation and nobody's going to enter this bubble.
Yeah.
And that's something that is extremely dangerous, especially today in our world where there's just constant, it seems, disruption and violence. I was in a city situation several years ago where it hit me for the first time. I was out, it was like 2:00 in the morning. I was walking back from an office to go back to my hotel room. Nothing happened, but I would see all these people in the darkness and suddenly it hit me. I am not safe. And I never even
Vulnerable.
considered. Yes,
Yeah.
Very vulnerable.
Well, the number one thing about situational awareness, it is the best deterrent. So I tell people all the time, even though I carry, I actually hope to never have to use my firearm.
Right.
I hope to take every step prior to that to deter, to project confidence, to make sure that I see the threat long before it gets to a point where I have to. The firearm for me is the very last resort when it's an imminent threat and my children's life or my life is being threatened. So I want to take every step necessary prior to that. The number one thing, put the cell phones down while
Right.
you are walking.
Or the
It
ear-
is-
in the
or
ears.
the earbuds. It's head on a swivel. I tell my kids this all the time. So even my son now, if he sees me walking with my cell phone in the house, he goes, "Mom, head on a swivel." I'm like, doing the right thing here. You know, we're teaching them. But that's the thing. It's picking up your eyes. It's looking around to see how many people
Right.
are around me. And we play
Right.
this game with my kids. Mom, this is a really great game to actually get your kids situationally aware because we don't want to scare them. So when we walk in parking lots, I start asking them questions. Hey, son, how many black cars do you see? How many men with hats do you see? How many men have mustaches? How many women with black coats? You know, and they count, and he's like, "Mom, 0." And I'm like, "Great, you passed the test." I mean, so we start doing little things like that that get them in the mindset of just knowing what's around you. Being situationally aware is absolutely the number one thing that you need to be in order to deter, hopefully,
Right.
being a victim.
Do you think that women are now much more aware of the world around them and being safer and taking classes? I mean, I know that the female audience is now up as far as gun sales.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So when I was doing my research study, concealed carry for women was up 500% since 2007. I mean, this was 2013 that I started all of this. So we know that that is up. There's a lot of states now that have constitutional carry. So we really don't know how many people carry on a daily basis because they don't have to report those stats.
Right.
But what I noticed during the pandemic, I was getting phone calls left and right from women on both sides of the political aisle that said, okay, there is a riot going on down the street from my house. There are people trying to break into my car, break into my house. I need to get a firearm. Where do I start? And, you know, I found it really interesting. I had a lot of women in California who vote very, very left-leaning, and the second they needed a firearm, they realized that the laws were hurting them.
Sure.
Because they had a 10-day wait period, you know, and those that were rioting or trying to break into their house already had access to a firearm.
Right.
So, you know, when you start paying attention, when this right becomes important to you, when you need it the most, you really start paying attention to legislation, you start paying attention to those politicians that want to take your right away from you. And I think that's what starts to get people really active on that side of it, to start fighting for their gun rights. But again, people don't realize it until they actually need it. But yeah, people are waking up and seeing, we're hearing stories now more often about these female runners that are going out. You've got Rachel Morin, Laken Riley, Molly Tibbetts, countless others who, you know, we had an influx of illegal immigration with a lot of violent criminals. We didn't know who was crossing our border. And these people have murdered these young women on runs. Now, we have enough criminals in our own country right now, you know, that you need to,
anymore.
regardless,
Yes.
even if we fix the border problem tomorrow and we don't ever let another violent criminal in, we still have violent people that live here in America, and you need to be protected and ready to defend yourself.
I mean, even just the fact with Charlie Kirk, this assassination. I mean,
that was crazy.
We're seeing things happen that, you know, my kids have never seen.
Yeah.
You know, so it is a place where now people are not able to talk anymore. You know, this town square isn't open for discussion anymore. Now violence is coming in, and like you said, even now with ICE and all these protests, it makes all of us feel uncomfortable and unsafe.
But then at the same time, you know, what's the first thing that comes to mind to a lot of women or most women when they think about a gun? it's always something negative because it's been stigmatized so much and aligned with crimes.
Yeah.
So immediately, they think about, a gun. It's completely like, oh, no, like I'm afraid to even touch one.
Well, there has to be a healthy respect and a fear of firearms to a certain degree because they can take a life.
Absolutely.
So I would absolutely say you need to respect them. But the only way to get over that fear is to go and practice it. It's the noise, it's the kick. There's several things about a firearm that are very intimidating. It was very intimidating to me. Just racking a slide. I didn't have the hand strength to do that when I got my first firearm. And I was like, you know what? My husband has to load the gun for me every single time before he would go on a work trip or whatever. Because I couldn't do it. And then when I finally got confident doing, I can't tell you the amount of just that confidence boost. And I lived my life very differently. And I think having that self-defense tool, we talked about projecting confidence. Having a self-defense tool on your body helps you project confidence because you think about it. If a man that's bigger, stronger, and faster than you wants to overtake you and he approaches you and you have no way to defend yourself, you're probably going to shrink back. You're probably going to be nice and ask him, don't hurt me, please. But if you have a way to back up your no, you can say, stop, back up, don't come any closer. And if they do,
I'm just laughing. I can imagine somebody coming after you when you're all petite and little, and then all of a sudden you're like, do not mess with me, bye.
Stop. I like being very unassuming, I'm telling you. No, it would definitely shock people. And I've had situations where I'm glad that I had my tool in my body because it helped me do that first step, which was tell them to back off. And I think just that confidence alone, the eye contact, they want an easy victim. It's just like the animal world. They're going to go for the weakest, the most quiet, the most timid. It's the same thing here. Criminals are looking for easy targets. They don't want to mess with somebody who actually projects confidence.
My daughter and I, when we're at the range and that kickback is so intimidating, and he's like, listen, guns go boom.
They do.
They make a noise.
They
and
do.
So it's like you're hoping that it doesn't, so it's just funny. We really have to get acclimated
Well, here's a
to it.
misconception I will say really fast. A lot of women, when they go to gun ranges, they want the smallest firearm. They think this is going to be the tiniest kick, and that's actually not true.
Right.
I like women to start with something like a Glock 19. It has a longer barrel. It has a bigger grip on it. So it actually reduces that blowback or that kick. And so people look at a big gun, they're like, I don't know. I don't want to shoot that. But it actually makes a big difference.
So the objective is get into the range, pick the gun that fits you, and practice. Amy, thank you so much for being with us. This has been fantastic and a topic that we definitely needed to cover. Our next guest knows a lot about our constitutionally protected rights and if they are being protected at all. When we come back, he'll talk about the definition of constitutional sheriffs and why they are badly needed in America today.
Hello, I'm Josh Mann, Managing Editor of The Lion. The Lion is an initiative of the Herzog Foundation, and we publish articles covering a wide range of issues facing American families and culture, especially related to the education of children. In covering these topics, we also touch on aspects of parenting, family life, faith, government, and other relevant cultural topics. We publish news stories every day aiming to produce timely, critical, must-read news articles and resources for families, educators, and leaders. Read the latest in education and cultural news at readlion.com. We also offer easy-to-digest daily and weekly email newsletters. Subscribe today at readlion.com/subscribe.
There is power in being a mom because we truly care. Nobody's going to care more about your children than you. And that's what this group is about, is real women getting together to fight real battles for our country.
Moms for America is a national movement of moms reclaiming our culture for truth, family, freedom, and the Constitution.
And I will tell you, I'm a journalist, but I am a mama bear. And I am a mama bear till the last breath in my body. And that's the most important thing I've ever done with my life.
Never, never underestimate the mother who's protecting her child. She will outfight fear. She will outlast danger. And she will outlove the world. And you surely do not mess with Mama Bear.
You can't push anything on our kids. We will stand up for our kids no matter what the consequences may be.
Moms for America is one of the most important organizations in saving our republic.
There are eyes, there are ears, and they're the most fierce fighters for our kids that we will ever know.
Every mission has two parts, those who give and those who do. And when we come together, we are stronger together in fulfilling that mission. An investment in Moms for America is an investment in the future. And we literally hold the future of America in our hands.
Sam Bushman is the CEO of Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. He's also a homeschooling father of 8 and a public speaker on all topics related to liberty. For over 30 years, Sam has been a talk show host, and currently he's hosting the podcast radio show, The Liberty Roundtable. Sam, welcome to the Mom View.
Thanks for having me.
Nice to have you.
So there's so many things we want to talk about today. So I want to jump right in with the question of what exactly is the role of a police officer, because a lot of people, I guess if you'd ask anybody, they would say it was to protect people, keep the peace, and make sure that the law is carried out. Is that
police officer or sheriff?
Either one, police officer, sheriff, law enforcement.
That's
generally.
partially true. Change police officer to peace officer to start, right? So they're supposed to be a peace officer, and the most important thing they're supposed to do is they're supposed to make sure that you have due process.
The police officers are supposed to do that because they make it seem like it's the courts.
Well, you could say it's the courts, but it starts with making sure that, hey, do they have probable cause? If not, they shouldn't be bothering you, should they?
No.
Okay. Secondly, then what about, hey, if they take you to jail, do they have to file charges quickly, or can they just like sit on them for a while? See, they need to file charges quickly. If you think about the Constitution, don't you have a right to a speedy trial? So the police officer has a lot to do, or the peace officer has a lot to do with your due process rights. Yes, it eventually translates to the courts in time. They should guarantee due process as well. But it starts with a constitutional sheriff. And that's different than a police or a peace officer, because sheriffs are elected. Police officers are appointed. Who do you think? Who answers to whom?
That's right.
Right.
So you want sheriffs because they answer to we the people. The appointed police officers or peace officers, they pay attention to what? The mayor, the city manager, the city whatever, right? And so it's a matter of who they pay attention to. That's why we like sheriffs, and we believe sheriffs are the key.
Yeah.
So if you are not talking about sheriffs and you're talking about the peace officers, then it could ebb and flow with politics, whereas the sheriff ebb and flows with the people themselves.
Yeah.
And if it starts to get political, the people have the right to say, you know what, we don't like that.
Yeah.
Sheriff, you're gone.
I've worked on quite a few sheriff campaigns because it is probably the most important local election. Would you agree, Sam?
Yes, because remember, there's 3 branches of government, and we always know that at the general level. You're taught that in school, but it's also true at the local level, right?
Right.
And the sheriff is the CLEO, is what the Supreme Court calls it, the chief law enforcement officer in a given county. In other words, the buck stops with him.
So there are a couple of things that I've learned about the power of the sheriff. One is if the FBI, any federal agency, is coming into a county to arrest someone or charge them or whatever, mainly arrest them, then they have to go through they have to alert the sheriff and let him know we're coming into your county. And there was a friend of mine who they called the sheriff. It was not a constitutional sheriff, and he just ignored the whole thing. And they're supposed to show up. But there was an experience in Indiana. It was because of everything that I've learned from your organization that we tell moms that the sheriff is the most powerful elected office in the country. And if the police are acting outside of the Constitution, the sheriff can come and step in. So we had some moms, I think it was in Indiana a few years ago, and they called in a panic. We showed up at the school board meeting. We were speaking, and they shut off our mic. They told us we had to stop talking even though our time wasn't up. They ended up calling the police, handcuffing these moms, and taking them to jail. And so they're like, what do we do? And I said, find out if you have a constitutional sheriff. And I told them what questions to ask, meet with your sheriff, have a relationship with him. And I said, let them know the next time that you're going to the school board meeting, alert him. He did happen to be a constitutional sheriff. I think he was actually a member of your organization. And so when the police came this time, they had one of the mamas texted the sheriff, and the sheriff came and he said, "Uncuff my people."
Right.
And the policeman uncuffed them, and he said, "You have no right. And so they're exercising the constitutional authority that you're talking about, that the police officers don't think that they have.
Yeah, what do they have that a police officer, what can the sheriff do, to Kim's point, that a police officer, the difference? Because I think that's what we're trying to figure out. They're so much more powerful.
So a police officer answers to a police chief, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the police chief just says, hey, we're not doing that. The city council or whatever the case may be says, we agree, or the mayor says, we agree. Now what are you going to do? Who are you going to go to?
Yeah.
And the answer is a sheriff is elected. So if you can go to a sheriff, and that's part of the problem is in America, we have fallen for this lie that we need to have these jurisdictional, corporational chief police people. And what they do is they really undermine the sheriff. And so the point should be that you should go to a sheriff. The buck stops with him. He's the chief law enforcement officer in the county.
That's
By the
right.
way, cities are in counties, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And then the buck stops with him. That's on a day-to-day basis. But the buck really stops with those who elected him, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if he doesn't do what you want, if he says, oh, let him go to jail, who cares, you're trespassing, or in other words, if he adds insult to injury, violating your due process, then it's important for the people to say, you know what, we don't like that.
Mm-hmm.
Sheriff, what's happening here?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we always want to think about how to win friends and influence people. And
Right.
so we don't want to just start firing sheriffs left and right. What we really want to do is give him a chance.
Yeah.
If he doesn't really understand some of his role, a lot of sheriffs don't. I know that, you know, they want you to believe they know everything, but they don't.
Mm-hmm.
They grew up in government school too.
Right.
Yeah.
And so they, you know, they can be taught. And it's up to the American people to teach that and say, you know what, Sheriff, we
Hold
want
them
you to protect
accountable.
due process rights of all of us.
Mm-hmm.
And so if he is willing to learn and grow and change and progress, then we want to work with him and teach him.
That
help
means
him.
the
And it's-
people themselves have to have the understanding. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and this is all great information and understanding and knowing the difference. Nowadays, I see the young crowd, young adults, especially high schoolers, and you know, especially with minority groups that are having a very difficult time trusting law enforcement. How do you think we should better deal with that? Because we're definitely not doing a good job helping, especially the young adults, understand that they're here to help, right, and to serve their
Sure.
communities.
I think that the media has a lot to do with this, sadly. You know, we hear about all the negative things that you hear about police day in and day out, but there's millions of things that go on that are positive and wonderful and happy and great that occur every day, and you don't hear about them. You only hear about the negative. So I would like to challenge the media to find wonderful stories about police officers doing wonderful things.
Mm-hmm.
Sheriffs, police officers, police chiefs, peace officers, you know, they all do a great job day in and day out for the most part. But secondly, I would like to say this. There's a term called community policing. And community policing means that, you know what, if a police officer or a sheriff or anybody in law enforcement does their job right, they should be working in the community. You should know your sheriff's name.
Mm-hmm.
Your sheriff should know who the bad people are in the community already. Okay? They should know who the good people are. The children should be able to be like, oh, that's officer so-and-so.
Right. Officer
In-
friendly.
Yeah, in neighborhood. That's right.
Right.
Officer friendly. And so the point is, if we were to bring back community policing, and that's one of the great things we advocate for, I think that 90% of these problems would go away, because if the media says, oh, this cop's a bad guy, you know, a little kid's going to be like, no, he's not.
That's true, because unfortunately, you know, the mainstream media, they already have an agenda, and it's not in favor of law enforcement. So we can't really count on them on helping us out on that, you know, in that aspect. So I think community engagement on both sides, right? The people,
Sure,
the
of
community
course.
members, and law enforcement as well. How do we make that better?
So
Because
one of the
it's-
ways is this. We have a hero sheriff, and he's in a place called Klickitat County, Washington. His name is Bob Songren. He's a current sheriff, and he has a sheriff's posse. Hundreds of people have signed up as volunteers to help him. He saves his county tons of money because of these volunteers. And so some of them are trained for search and rescue. Some of them are trained for true law enforcement because they're former military or former police officers that live in their community. But a lot of it, they even have a kids program. And so let's say you have a county fair or a rodeo or something. All these kids are working and they've got these sheriff shirts on and stuff like this because they're part of the sheriff's posse, right? And so obviously there needs to be a vetting process. He's written a whole manual to help sheriffs across the country learn how to set up the sheriff's posse to be, appropriate. You got to vet the people and give them different responsibilities. But there's children involved in his program. And so that's the kind of community policing I'm talking about.
I love that.
That's
gonna
so
say
cool.
Something too, to Vanessa's point, is that we're seeing like sanctuary cities. I'm from Chicago.
Yes.
So now across the country, we're seeing all of this division where you're seeing the mayors, undermining President Trump. We're seeing all of this chaos in the streets in cities all across our country.
Minnesota is a perfect example.
Another perfect example. So this, causing all the strife is just, it's a cue up for problems, clearly.
Well, there's ways for the general government, for example, for law enforcement and for deportations, there's ways to work on this and do so peacefully. I believe this is an intentional divide in our country that's causing this. If you had a sheriff work with, say, the 287 G programs and stuff like that, there's ways that the general government can coordinate. The term we use for this is called coordination. And you can have local law enforcement coordinate with whoever across county lines with different sheriffs, across state lines with different attorney generals, or et cetera. There's ways to work and coordinate. And the problem is they're not doing that. Okay, and Tom Holman has spoke about this specifically where he says, we could be taking care of these criminals in jails if you'd cooperate, if we could coordinate, if we could work together. We wouldn't be on the streets in the first place.
Yeah, just go pick them up in the jails.
And this is where the 287 comes in. Can you explain to our audience what that is?
So 287G is a general program at the general government level, and it's designed to help with this coordination point that I'm making. It's a voluntary program, so sheriffs aren't forced to be part of it. Remember, the sheriffs have jurisdictional authority. So the federal government doesn't have authority to demand things happen in the county. And that's what our founder, Sheriff Richard Mack's whole Supreme Court case was about, is that Bill Clinton said, hey, Sheriff, you're going to carry out the Brady Bill. Sheriff Mack said, no, I'm not. And Bill Clinton said, shut up, Sheriff, I'll arrest you if you don't. Sheriff Mack said, we'll see. They went all the way to the Supreme Court. Sheriff Richard Mack won. And Bill Clinton, the President of the United States, lost.
True
now,
story.
The media tries to take advantage of that and say, we think that the sheriff's more powerful than the president. No, we don't.
He is.
No, we don't. It depends on the jurisdiction.
That's right.
If you're in the 10-mile square in Washington, D.C., who's more powerful? The president.
Right.
If you're in this county, this sheriff has more authority than the president does.
It's incredible.
It's a jurisdictional discussion. But the best is when we don't fight for supremacy. The best is when we coordinate and work together and say, hey, what's best for the American people? And that's who we serve, right? And so I bring this up to say that I think that if we could work with the jails for the real criminals, then the people that are here for the right reasons and who want to be here and who want citizenship, hey, the Congress can work on laws to adjust for that. We can have a justice plan for the bad guys and a mercy plan for the good guys. And there's a way to work this out as long as you take out the politics.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, let's be real.
It has become
Everything
political.
Everything is political nowadays.
It is, but we can work on making it not. And it happens with you and me and each of us. All a society is people. And if we have self-governing individuals, pretty soon you have a self-governing
That's
society.
really the root of it. And that's my whole point, is if we as citizens do not understand the role of the sheriff, our role and responsibility, we don't understand the Constitution, how can we possibly expect freedom to prevail under a constitutional government? So I think that really educating the citizenry on what the Constitution is, but the one component that I think we always leave out is the power of the sheriff and relationships with the sheriff. And it's one of those elections we never pay attention to. We don't even consider it. And we need to elevate that position so people realize just how powerful it is to help them.
There's another misnomer that I want to kind of clear up. Everybody thinks that a sheriff has to be, 40 years in law enforcement or this and that. It's not true.
Okay.
I mean, it's good for them to have some law enforcement background for sure, or maybe some military background or something. But a lot of people can even learn that stuff. There's sheriffs now that have been elected who don't have law enforcement background, but here's what their response is. Yeah, but my 5 deputies do.
Right.
Okay. When does it become the sheriff is about due process of law? The sheriff is about keeping his oath of office. And then the sheriff is about kind of administrative work while the deputies do the day-to-day. That can happen. And so don't be fooled into thinking that just because somebody doesn't have law enforcement experience, that they could never be a sheriff. We need to find good, honorable, wise servants to be sheriffs.
And that is a big problem that, for the most part, people don't understand. They don't know the Constitution and the importance of it. And Kimberly, you've mentioned constitutional protected rights. And Sam, why do you think that we have taken the Constitution of the United States for granted? What are your thoughts on that?
I think there's a lot of reasons. I don't think people intend to. I think people just grow up and they go to school and they're not really taught that.
Right.
They're taught other things, which I won't get into. But they're not really taught the fundamentals of that. When I grew up, I was always taught, hey, if you ever get lost, look for a police officer. Look for somebody that, okay, nowadays kids aren't taught that. They're taught run.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I think that it has to do with the parents, a lot of it. And I'm not trying to place blame anywhere, but in every direction that I'm going to point, I believe there's solutions, and that's why I'm looking there. I think parents matter. I think that our school systems, or how you get educated, matters. I think that the police, instead of sitting in their cop cars and eating donuts, that's what people think they are, right?
Right.
That's the perception.
And that's partly on them. If they were out doing community policing, as I've talked about, I don't think that they would have that perception. Bob Songer's not perceived that way. He's got kids going, I love the sheriff.
Right.
I help him when it comes to rodeos, and I help him when it, and they work at the hot dog stand, and they work at checking people's, tickets to get inside, and they help set up chairs, and they help clean up afterwards, and they do all kinds of wonderful things. But in the process, they get to know the police.
Yeah.
They get to know the law enforcement in their area, and they become friends. That's what we're after.
Yeah.
They used to have stories like that on the news all the time, and
Yes.
rescuing the cat from the tree was like a real thing. And the boy, when there was a fire, and the police and the fire department, they were all there rescuing these kids. I mean, those were the stories, and I think those are still the stories that people want to hear. But the news media is convinced that bombastic is what gets people to watch, and I think we're just tired of it and tuning it out.
Yeah, if it bleeds, it leads. Do we have time for a quick story?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so I'm a talk show host, and I look for good stories about community policing, right? And I found this great story a couple of years ago. I don't have it in front of me, so I'm going to just have to paraphrase it. But this old man was speeding, and he got pulled over by the sheriff and the deputy. And they said, hey, sir, get out of your car, and all this stuff. And he was just crying and melting down. They're like, what the heck's going on with this guy? And it turns out when they listened, and I want to kind of hammer that, they listened. Imagine the police listening to you. Usually they're like, hey, let me see your license, shut up, you don't talk, right?
Right.
Okay, but they listened to him. And here's this old man's story. I don't know what to do. My wife's super sick, and our TV broke. And I went to buy a new TV, and I don't know how to hook it up, and I'm worried about her. I don't know what to do, and I'm sorry, sir, I was driving too fast. I don't know what to do. You know what the police did in this case? The deputy goes, I'm actually kind of a techno guy. Why don't I come to your house and I'll hook up your TV for you? And they literally did. And the law enforcement guy went over there, hooked up the old man's TV, met the wife, found out the story was true. There was no games. This guy didn't mean to drive too fast. He was just way distracted with his own worries, like most of us. And so they literally took care of this old gentleman and helped him hook up his TV and got him all squared away. And to me, that's community policing. And believe it or not, that's how Sheriff Mack, he used to be a ticket cop guy, and he admits he was kind of a jerk cop. But he realized when he pulled over a lady, she had kids in the car, they weren't sitting down, she was distracted trying to get her kids to sit down and, be buckled or whatever, and she ran a red light, and he pulled her over, and he was going to give her a ticket. He went back in his cop car and started to give the ticket, and he just thought to himself, what is happening here? I'm not doing what I should be doing. So he literally walked up, gave the lady's license back, didn't even say anything to her. He felt so embarrassed that he just left. And he didn't tell her you're not getting a ticket or anything. He just left because he was just, and it changed his whole life. Right. And so my whole point about these stories is to say that's the kind of police work that I think can change the game.
Serve and protect, right? It is serving.
That's exactly
really,
what we need. I would love to see more of that, and I wish that we could have more of that so we could tell those stories. And you're right, there is a political game at foot, but I think a lot of it a lot of it is the way that they're trained now, and those are things that can change on that end, but we have to change ourselves so that we can, if we understand what the Constitution is and what the role of the sheriff is, we can go and have a relationship and help empower him to be able to do the right thing, but we have to teach ourselves first.
That's true.
Education is key.
Yeah.
Yep.
It is
Thanks,
for everything
Sam.
else.
And we have the CSPOA.org. That's the national posse. If everybody joins, they can help. We train police officers and communities all over the country. We train all elected officials, by the way, and we help train the public to understand what their role is also.
Can you give that website again?
CSPOA.org.
CSPOA.org. All right. Thank you so much for being on, Sam.
Thanks, everybody.
I love talking about the power of the sheriffs. Gives us power. We'll be right back. More of the Mom View after this break.
It's hard work being a mom today. So it is very important to have an organization that really cares about moms.
The role of parent is the most powerful position in the world because we've been entrusted with the souls of our future leaders. And if you're wondering how you could really wrap your mind around these principles and how you can put feet to your faith, I would definitely recommend that you find out more about, support, and get involved with Moms for America.
The Herzog Foundation exists to catalyze and accelerate the development of quality, Christ-centered K-12 education so that families and culture flourish. To do so, we've created comprehensive programs designed for Christian schools across the nation. One of those programs is found at readlion.com. The Lion carries news articles covering issues especially related to the education of children. These are timely, critical, must-read articles for families, educators, and leaders. Another program is the Herzog Foundation Institute, where we provide training for Christian educators led by national thought leaders in subjects such as marketing, donor development, and culture building. All training events are fully funded by the Herzog Foundation. And finally, with new Christian schools popping up all over the country, we've created a free online resource to help with the process. HF Schoolbox provides lessons and free mentorship to help launch groups navigate the startup process every step of the way. We're the Herzog Foundation. You can find out more at herzogfoundation.com.
There is power in being a mom because we truly care. Nobody's going to care more about your children than you. And that's what this group is about, is real women getting together to fight real battles for our country.
Moms for America is a national movement of moms reclaiming our culture for truth, family, freedom, and the Constitution.
And I will tell you, I'm a journalist, but I am a mama bear. And I am a mama bear till the last breath in my body. And that's the most important thing I've ever done with my life.
Never, never underestimate the mother who's protecting her child. She will outfight fear. She will outlast danger. And she will outlove the world. And you surely do not mess with Mama Bear.
You can't push anything on our kids. We will stand up for our kids no matter what the consequences may be.
Moms for America is one of the most important organizations in saving our republic.
There are eyes, there are ears, and they're the most fierce fighters for our kids that we will ever know.
Every mission has two parts, those who give and those who do. And when we come together, we are stronger together in fulfilling that mission. An investment in Moms for America is an investment in the future. And we literally hold the future of America in our hands.
Well, that story that Sam told about the police officer pulling over the lady, I have to say, I had the exact opposite experience. Several years ago, I was stopped in this little town and I was completely lost trying to find the direction. I am directionally challenged, so I was a little flustered. I ran a stop sign, did not realize it. He pulled me over. I wound the window down halfway because I don't know who he is. He doesn't know who I am, protecting us both. And he just harassed me and harassed me. What are you trying to hide? What, just literally. And finally, and he's like, well, if you don't do this, you don't wind down the window, I'm going to make you come out of the car. And I'm like, no, sir, you are not. and I wasn't trying to, assert my rights at that time, because I was telling people, choose the right time to assert your rights. But he was just being awful. And he was this young guy in his early 30s. And finally, I just looked at him and I said, is this the way you would want your wife or mother to be treated? he immediately just changed his complete countenance, showed me the directions of where I needed to go, gave me the ticket anyway, but whatever. But he just completely changed. So I think if we can help them become more human then and more connected in the community, that would really alleviate a lot of the discontent.
I know, I always go, please, 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 I didn't mean to be speeding. Please, give me a second. But I mean, to your point, I think, respect is due both ways.
Right.
And I think if the police pulls you over, just work with the police. Everyone has to honor and respect them. But yet again, you don't want to be intimidated or bullied.
Right.
Because they have a very hard job.
They do.
I mean, they don't know what they're walking up to. I mean, maybe when he's walking up to you wouldn't think that
But you make a very good point. I did not know this. My brother was a police officer, worked in a sheriff's office, and he told me that the most dangerous situations for a police officer are at traffic stops and home family abuse situations where they are in most danger.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that. And he said, you have no idea how many police officers are killed by pulling somebody over. And okay, so Guy, I'm really sorry for the men out there because they're going to look like but I'm just a sweet little mom.
And who knows, right? They go through a lot on a daily basis, things that we don't know, that doesn't get reported, that doesn't get written, and that doesn't get put out there on social media.
Right.
In fact, it's the other way around. So now with TikTok taking over social media, we have a lot of people out there having similar experiences to yours, Kimberly, and giving a bad light to law enforcement.
Right.
So all of that just piles in. And of course, people are going to start, continue to building into this perception about law enforcement that they're bad guys,
right?
And they're really not. And then in addition to that, I feel really bad for them because I do know that they go through a lot and they're constantly in danger. And we, the people, don't realize that for the most part.
Yeah, we appreciate our law enforcement. We appreciate our sheriff, everyone that's taking care of us to make our community safe. But what about conceal and carry? What are we going to do? I mean, not everybody's concealing carrying, I know. What about you, Vanessa? Is Amy's discussion, do you want to conceal, or is this conceal and carry, or does this intimidate us more?
Well, Vanessa brought up a really good point that there are women out there that can't even afford a gun, let alone going into the training places where you can train to be prepared to use the gun.
Right.
Yeah, Amy gave so much great information. It was very, very informational. But then at the same time, I couldn't help to think that, what about the women out there who can't even afford a handgun, a used handgun, and who don't have the time to get the additional training or the money for additional training, or even to pay a gun range and go practice. A lot of moms, women in general, can't afford that. That they're considering owning a gun, but how do I even start planning and going through all the steps that Amy mentioned that are so crucial and important in order to be a responsible gun owner?
Not only intimidating, but the affordability.
Right, exactly. So now that you've brought up the problem, I love coming up with solution.
Yes,
we should
please,
have
'cause I know there's a lot of
Amy
women
do
out
a
there.
webinar series for us that costs nothing, that gives basic information, and we need to make sure and put out her website for her cool apparel.
Yes.
Yes. And and I didn't want to mention this, but what my cousin kept coming up in my mind when she was talking, because I remember her one time when we were meeting, we started talking about guns, and and she said she had not even considered owning a gun because guns are for rich people. Like owning a gun legally is for rich people, and that is
Never thought about that.
not the case, right? But yeah, so there's definitely having a webinar to have that education, and also mentioning and talking about how they can not better inform themselves and educate themselves, but that it is possible to own a gun.
Yeah, possible,
and to do it very
and it's our
responsible.
right.
Yeah,
It's our constitutional
these were
right.
great topics. Every show gets better and better. I don't know. These are the things that we like to talk about. If there's something that you want to talk about that we haven't addressed, please feel free to reach out to us at themomview.com and share and like us on all our social media platforms. And we want to once again thank Herzog, because we have a great relationship with them. What a great partnership we have. So we will see you next week on The Mom View with another great set of topics. See you then.